This is an example of a bivariate presentation. It is entitled Framing the Toronto G20 Protests. At the 2010 G20 summit, large numbers of protesters, some violent, and large numbers of police came face to face, leading to the greatest mass arrest in Canadian history. Since then, activists and apologists on the two sides of the issue have attempted to blame one another. I thought that this was a good ground for investigation. The research background of this work is the fact that opinion was quite divided on whether the police or the protesters were responsible for the violence that occurred. This can be seen in the results of the STAR G20 survey. In addition, I am aware of some framing research done around political protests by Snyderman and his colleagues, as well as some work on emotion in the study of framing in the journals of political psychology. The study was conducted in the early months of 2011. We had 607 participants in the study, some of whom were entirely voluntary, some of whom received an incentive for their involvement in the study. The dependent variable in this study is based upon a question that asked respondents, are you more concerned over the actions of the police or the actions of the protesters during the G20? The responses are coded so that a high score is given to those respondents who express greater concern over the police actions, whereas low scores correspond to greater concern over protest actions. I have three independent variables defining three hypotheses. H1 is that exposure to a police violence frame creates greater concern over police action. H2 is that greater respondent anger does the same. And H3 is that a predisposition towards freedom rather than order also leads to greater concern over police action. Here are the results regarding my first hypothesis. You can see the dependent variable has been broken into three categories of low, medium, and high police responsibility, and this is cross-tabulated with three frames depicting either protester violence, police violence, or both. There is a positive, though modest, relationship between the two variables, as indicated by the tau b. The chi-square is significant. Looking across the percentages, we also see the clear signs of a positive relationship. Look, for example, at the bottom high row of police responsibility. We see that the percentage increases as we move from protester to police violence. And indeed, only protester and police violence are significantly different from one another. The middle column is not significantly different from either extreme. The results for the second hypothesis regarding emotion affecting attributions of police responsibility appears in this table. Here we can see a stronger relationship as indicated by the column percentages. Look across the high responsibility row, for example, it moves from 15 to 32 to 53%. This is summarized by a tau b of 0.26 and a very significant chi-square, and all three columns differ significantly from one another. The results for the third hypothesis presented in this table show a clear relationship, both is exhibited by the percentages differences in the columns as well as by the tau score, which in this case is 0.36 with a very significant chi-square. We can conclude from this analysis that framing effects do occur. However, they are quite modest, as indicated by the tau beta score of only 0.12. Emotion is a substantially more important variable, and indeed twice as important, as indicated by the summary measure of tau b of 0.26. However, it's the predisposition that the respondent brings into the study that seems to matter most. That is a 0.35 relationship there. We can think about possible further research is that we might consider whether textual versus visual frames differ in their effects. We also might consider whether the emotions, if they're considered as being targeted on the police or being on the protesters, so that who you're angry at makes a difference, is something we could look at further. Moreover, I might want to build an index of predisposition, though I'd be concerned that it might become too strong. This is the syntax with which the analysis can be replicated.